We'll call this November 9th Brown County Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Sutton, will you lead the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. First item, approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item, we have the first reading of ordinance 205, the medical cannabis.
Ordinance number 205, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Revision of Brown County Ordinances as amended to issue medical cannabis establishment permits and/or licenses.
Do you have any questions, any input?
I will move first reading.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to approve the first reading of the medical cannabis ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
There are a few items that are not resolved in the ordinance. We want to discuss those today, such as the number of dispensary licenses, the county licensing fee, and the number of cannabis establishments that are non-dispensary, such as cultivating, testing, and manufacturing. There's a packet I made you guys, and these are items 1 and 2 on the cover sheet. Then the public will have opportunity to address this topic at second reading as well. It'd be ideal if you guys want to have a discussion on it today while we're doing first reading. Since those items are not, they're recommended from zoning, and some are just not even said in the proposed ordinance, such as the license fee.
Hadn't we discussed 5,000 for license? Wasn't that what we had originally talked about?
That was a number that was thrown out based not knowing what a lot of the other counties were doing, and that seems to be a pretty common price tag based on the information we were provided.
Part of that discussion should be, if the license is not approved as a county or state, do we refund any of it, all of it, a part of it? And if you want that to be the same as a renewal fee annually. And keep in mind, this is just going to change, right?
Yep.
Recreational and state law changes, so what we set today won't be set in stone forever.
But this way we've got something on the books that we can work from.
Yeah, we have something to get started. There is some interest already in getting licenses.
Looks like $5,000, pretty common number, with half of that refunded if declined, so that seems to be the trend at this point.
Want to make that part of your motion?
I will make that motion. We set the fee at $5,000 with $2,500 of that being refunded if it declined or denied.
We have an amended motion to the ordinance.
Yeah, A and B, the recommended one medical dispensary.
And do you want to place a limit on the establishments, or just leave it unlimited? That's your cultivating, testing, manufacturing?
I'm okay with leaving it for now.
Are you okay?
Same fee?
Yeah. What are we doing?
That works, yes.
Okay, I concur with my second.
Okay, we have an amended motion on the ordinance. Motion was by Sutton, amended, second by Weiss. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we have the landfill cell 4 change order and pay estimate.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
So, landfill project is wrapping up, all done. Got this paperwork things left. First would be the change order, and then second would be final pay estimate. Change order is for an increase of $82,484.26. That's as bid to as built quantities, and then some extra work that's completed in the project.
What was the total?
$82,484.26, just over 4%. And we're still pending, I think, the 10% grant from the state.
Right, we have not received that yet. Once the paperwork is all finished here, that'll be submitted, and the grant will be obtained.
We don't anticipate any issues with that, though.
No.
Nope, that's already a done deal.
Yeah,
They've already told us we'll get it.
Yep,
Okay.
and the cell has been approved by the state and it's being used right now.
So the grant's gonna exceed what the change order is, by
Yes,
6%, roughly 6%.
Correct.
What was the grant?
10%, so right now it's 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'll move the change order.
Second.
Moved by Pikert, second by Sutton, to approve the change order for land cell 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else for us on the landfill?
Is that passment, I didn't catch that motion. The passment in that motion?
Sorry, what?
Was the passment in the motion too?
The motion was just a change order,
Okay,
so
change order. Yep. So next would be the pay estimate, the final.
I'll move
Application
the pay
number 4.
estimate.
Second.
Motion by Sutton, second by Kipley, to approve the pay estimate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
You have the range on your agenda next?
Yeah, that's right.
We have
Yep.
quite a crowd out here. Did somebody say they might be willing to move it to the basement?
We can, we do have people on the go-to meeting. I'm thinking you're probably here for that as well.
Okay, it's your decision. If you want them to go to the basement, I can lead the crowd down there. If not, you make.
I
the
like
decision.
Rachel's idea.
If you wanna let them know, we're gonna take testimony from on the phone first on it, and then we'll
Okay.
go down to the basement.
Very good.
And there's room for half a dozen people. If
Yeah,
they
we
want
have-
Okay.
to filter in here, they're welcome to do
All right.
that.
That way they can watch the presentation.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, folks, we're here for the wage meeting. What we're gonna do is they have people that are.
Standing room only.
So you walk around, you feel comfortable listening to that, and then we'll take the meeting down here. Yeah, so you're welcome to go in there and listen.
Open it up.
This is ridiculous.
Just like church.
What's that?
This is ridiculous.
What?
It's not.
I don't think that thing's ever been opened.
The dust is flying.
We just wanna see.
Yeah. Filter around, come on in, we've had this place full, so.
Come back this way too.
Right up here, there's a chair here and a couple here.
Yeah, Jack, you can come up here, if people wanna go in there and watch from in there, you're welcome to, or whatever you're comfortable with.
Game Fish and Parks take one of the front ones.
I got one. Just me. Organization.
Oh, maybe I should have brought my glasses. I'm in denial yet.
Pearl, there's a chair back over here if you wanna come in and sit down.
Hi, Pearl. How you doing?
Good morning.
The only requirement is you're sitting next to me, I need you after 8 years.
She's not sitting.
Pass this mouse down.
Are you making stuff up?
No.
Yeah.
I just go Pearl.
Yeah.
That way you can.
We'll let her have your chair.
Well, the next item we have on our agenda is it Jackie Irmer?
Yep.
With federal aid grant funded gun range. And I think we'll let you start and see where we go, and then there's the people that can chime in on the,
Yeah, if she wants to speak for a few minutes, and then we can take testimony from anybody that wants to speak that's on the go-to meeting. And then if we'd like to move to a larger location, we can certainly go downstairs.
Sounds good.
you have the floor, Jackie.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Thanks for having me this morning, Commission. And again, my name is Jackie Irmer. I'm the Regional Wildlife Supervisor up here in the Northeast region for Game Fish and Parks. And just wanted to bring this idea to the Commission here, just kind of give you some ideas and some different layouts, things we're thinking about. None of this is set in stone, so just looking for a discussion here today. I'm excited that we could possibly partner on a gun range here in the Aberdeen area. So today we'll talk about some prior conversations we've been having, and again, the overview of some other gun ranges in South Dakota, the possible location here in Brown County, and some grant opportunities, because Aberdeen is identified as one of 3 priority areas in the state for a gun range, the other ones being Sioux Falls and Rapid City. There's a lot of, if you're familiar with Pittman-Robertson funding, there's an excise tax on basically hunting and fishing goods, so guns, ammo, things like that, and those monies then will get allocated back to states, and so that's where some of this money is coming from, Pittman-Robertson money that we can apply for. It's not just hunting, it's shooting sports, and there's a lot of shooters in the state of South Dakota. So really looking to see if we can work together on getting a gun range here in the Aberdeen area, so we can promote safety, shooting sports, and local law enforcement training would help as well. So conversations probably started about, almost a year ago, January of 2020, with the city of Aberdeen and the Brown County Sportsmen and Game Fish and Parks, looking, maybe to see if we can collaborate with the Brown County Sportsman Club, their facility where it is now, south of town. That club is, that range is open via membership with the Sportsman Club right now, and they are open to the public with that membership fee. We're looking possibly to expand that range at the time. That wasn't something that they were interested in doing, so we were looking, okay, where else made this range work. So that's where we started just talking some more and looking around. Understand that the law enforcement training site south of town may be closing as well. And we all know COVID hit, so discussions kind of got stymied, and we didn't meet again until October of last year, and then the county folks were, Commissioner Weiss was in those meetings with us, and we just talked about the need again and possible locations. We started doing site visits earlier this year, went to a couple different places, and just looking for something that'd be a site that could be safe and open free to the public is what we were looking for. So we're looking for a site, safety is our #1 priority. And, now we got folks that are shooting down road right-of-ways and road ditches, out in open pastures. So really what we wanted to do for the area is develop a safe, designated place for people to go, free and open to the public. We use the NRA source book, their guidelines, just as a starting point. We can go well above and beyond what they recommend in their source book. We were looking for some place that's easily accessible, traffic, preferably off of an oil road, within, 6, 7, 8 miles of Aberdeen. Initially we were looking within the city limits of Aberdeen, and really couldn't find the right location for that. So we started looking outside. Noise is a factor, so there's different things that you can build in with berms and baffles and things like that on a range to reduce noise, planting trees. Site monitoring is something we can do. We can have video cameras out there, hours of operation, not looking to have this open to night shooting at all. It would, so like I said, none of this is set in stone. This is all stuff that we consider, and we can talk about what we'd want it to look like in the end. As far as the options for the bays, looking anywhere from like a 25-yard pistol range up to a 300-yard. Wouldn't want to go farther than that, given the topography around here. Even though we know there's long-range shooters, other sites around the state where they have, out like in Fort Pierre, where they have those the cliffs and stuff, they can do some longer-range shooting options. So, really just looking to build a community partnership project here, if we can. Want to give a quick overview of the Watertown gun range. I don't know if anybody has been to that one. It's the one we're kind of thinking here for Aberdeen, since population's somewhat the same, looking to reach probably about 3,000 shooters within the 50-mile radius of Aberdeen. So this is all, layout of Watertown gun range, and that's what I'll show you later too, when we look at a site for here. But they have 2 25-yard pistol bays, 200-yard, they got a 200-yard and a 300-yard. They have a vault toilet there, gravel parking lot, shooting benches, in partnership with Pheasants Forever for a pollinator plot around there. And this one, Watertown is within the city limits of Watertown. The city owns and operates that range now in accordance with that Pittman Robertson grant. So this, I don't have a pointer, you know.
No.
Wish I had one. I gotta get one ordered. So this is what the Watertown range looks like, and this is just south of the softball and soccer complex in Watertown. You can see on the left side there, those are shorter, those are the pistol bays, and then, you know, you got the 100 and 200 and 300 yards. So that's what that looks like there. This is just showing you too what the, you know, the berms there on the sides and in the back. So again, those would be to at least a minimum of the NRA specs, you know, and like an 8-foot berm on the side, 20 foot on the back. But we can build that much higher. I think Ryan Tobin, probably joining us via Zoom here, is our chief engineer who has kind of he's helped build some of these, designed them in some of the areas, so he was kind of been our go-to on when we had a lot of questions on how to build these. But you see the awning, the baffles, I mean, it's pretty much forcing people to shoot down the line, minimizing that blue sky they see. Just another view of it, of the awning, and you can see there's garbage cans there for garbage. You can't see the cameras up there, but there's cameras attached to the posts there. The shooting benches, they have swivel seats, and yet they accommodate both left and right-hand shooters. It's ADA accessible. Those swivel chairs go up. We have brought our kids out there to shoot. You know, swivel that thing up pretty high, but it accommodates any height. Out here shows you a little better picture of those shooting benches and those flags you see there. Those are if somebody needs to go downrange, when the downrange is hot, those flags go up and shooting stops. So that's what those flags are for. Here, just giving you, I guess, that tunnel look of if you're sitting there on the bench and all that stuff above you, so you're minimizes. I mean, people aren't shooting straight up. Go through that awning, all those baffles, and you can see the berm on the side. So it creates a very controlled environment for your shooting. Here's a vault toilet and a small storage building. Lots of parking out here, just to give you an idea. The rules are very well posted out there. Really hard to read that, but they have several signs out there. You can see right there the hours of operation. It's not during the night in Watertown either. Different May through September, it's different than October through April. You know, we're not looking for a shotgun range either. This is pistol and rifle is what it would be.
And the Watertown one does limit, they don't let 50 calibers or machine guns, things like that out there, so.
Does somebody stay there, or do you have somebody open it at 8 AM, close it at 8 PM, or what's the staffing like for that then? Just somebody.
That's the city, the Watertown Parks and Rec manages this, and there's no gate there, so it is open.
They just open it every day?
Yep,
and come
it's
back
just
and
those are
close
the
it at night?
hours.
Okay.
I don't believe there is a gate at all there. I don't think anybody,
It's just, it's
Yeah,
just open.
it's just open.
And that's what the security cameras are for.
Mhm.
If someone's in there messing around at night, they can find out who did it, and the Watertown PD does patrol through that area, so that's kind of our agreement with them. So they can watch to make sure no one's, you know, abusing the range or, you know, vandalizing or anything else.
Sure.
But it's not supervised?
No.
So in Brown County, who would be patrolling it? Would it be the Brown County Sheriff?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
the intersection of Old Highway 12 and Brown County 6, people are speeding through there all the time. Brown County Sheriff, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people that go through there. And I mean, the rules of the road is a stop sign. If they can't obey those laws, how are they going to obey a sign? That's a liability issue if nobody's out there supervising. At least with the Sportsman's Club, you pay a membership. You basically sign a contract with them saying you're going to use and obey their rules. Out here, it's going to be free to the public. And in Watertown, the site was built in 2018. In 2020, that site was vandalized in 2020. Did you guys ever catch the perpetrator who did that? Because I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for people who vandalize that site.
I'm not, I guess it's the Watertown Parks and Rec that manages that, and I just talked to them the other day, and they said that site gets a lot of use, daily, and she didn't allude to any issues they've had, so, I'd have to follow up on that, if, that vandalism, they didn't mention anything about that, but, like Nick mentioned, there's cameras out there, and they can, see that. And we can do, if we, site here, Brown County, if we wanted gates on it, we can put gates on it, we can do, really whatever we want. So, this is just what the Watertown one, skip over. These are just some other ranges in the state that have some longer, range shooting. They could use their landscape a little bit more, so it took a little less dirt work on some of these sites at Lower Wahi and Fall River.
How is it that they come up with the Brown County site on Brown County land rather than the Casanova property that South Dakota Game Fish and Parks owns? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that much further away, and it seems like you'd be affecting less people. There's not the residents and stuff around there. I'm just curious as to why it was Brown County's property was selected rather than property that the state already owns.
Okay. And I appreciate that question, and I wouldn't say that this Brown County property has been selected yet. Nothing's been selected.
How was it offered to you?
So,
curious as how it got offered.
yeah, so when we were initially looking around for sites, we looked at Lion Pit, north, east of town, looked at some other sites that are either, too wet, to haul the dirt in for the berms is gonna be really expensive, it really increases the cost of it. So we just started looking around, and the site next to, this is, I wish I had a pointer, so you can see the red there, and at the very bottom there, that would be the potential site that's right across from the landfill there, and that red would be called a surface danger zone, and this is what Ryan Tobin, our engineer, was able to work on, and this would be, the area without berms, that we'd be looking at the surface danger zone, the potential direction for those bullets. If you were shooting that direction, that's where it goes. And so when we were looking at that site, and it was, a lot of it was, the available fill was right next door, with that one. So that would really be the county's contribution. There's no exchange of property at all. Still county-owned property.
Why does the county end up getting stuck with the bill on everything else on it then? I mean, like, you're gonna have maintenance on it. Every year, you're gonna need a budget in the county to upgrade or to keep this up.
The range itself will be operated by the city.
So we're giving the county property to the city.
No, the county's gonna continue to own the property if this goes forward, is the plan. The city's gonna operate and maintain it. And to answer your question, Dennis, I've been involved in some of the discussions probably for 2-3 years. And the initial discussion, I'm a member of the Sportsman's Club. There was an opportunity, and we explored that opportunity. All I've been involved in is to try and facilitate discussions, because there's resources to build or to facilitate a range. And the Sportsman's Club range used significant amounts of money of this same fund 20-plus years ago to build their facility. And they've tried very hard. I'm a member of that organization. I participate to the extent that I can in helping train for the public, different kinds of things and so forth. I love what they do. It's like any other organization. It's a little difficult sometimes. Had some conversations about some potential land acquisition to put a longer range shooting opportunity in there, the possibility of opening it up, and they've made some changes to make it easier for the public to use that range on a more open time basis and so forth. I'm simply trying to facilitate the potential conversations, and I became aware of the fact that Nick and Mike at the landfill had a conversation one time where Nick asked, is it possible to put it on the landfill? Because there's fill and so forth there, and it was pretty quickly, on the landfill, no. But the county does own property across the road. That's a potential, and that's all this is a potential location for this to go.
that the county could participate without spending a nickel, quite frankly. If we allowed that, you know, we'd lose a little bit of revenue from what we lease that property out right now for someone else to farm it. But we don't have any plans to utilize those facilities for the next 20 years or so. And we do have the luxury, if you will, of a significant amount of fill that can be used towards an in-kind contribution to berms and things like that, that's right there at the landfill. And I think Mike would say, you know, that we have a surplus of property, so it's not a situation, it's like, well, we're gonna have to spend $1 million to bring, you know, fill from 10 miles away in order to build the berms into this site. It's right there, and, you know, we could make that available without any initial conversation or, you know, initial investment on our part. So that's, quite frankly, I've been involved in some of these discussions. I would love to have it, you know, a part of the Sportsman's Club. We explored that, and Ray or any of the rest of you, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, looked at that very seriously. We were down to what? Lanes, what, 200 yards? 2, 3, do you remember?
Well,
It's been a while.
put together everything from Pistol Bays to 750 yards, just all comes down to,
Yeah.
where's the money come from?
Yeah. There were some land acquisition issues, and, you know.
We weren't willing to give our land up to the city.
Right.
That's basically what it come down to in the end.
Yeah, so this site was just, you know, a potential, and that's all it is at this point, is a potential, but, you know, run it a little farther to ground, and my participation is to facilitate the conversation, and there's obviously some interest and some concern by the number of people that are showing up. So where that goes, I don't have any preconceived notion to that, but there's resources and there's some need. Because shooting sports is not gonna go away, and right now, you know, additional opportunities is something that, you know, especially with these resources, we should explore. And if it's on this site, fine, and if it's not, it's not.
Can I go back to the surface danger zone? So what happens if a stray bullet or anything like that lands into a pasture and potentially kills livestock that's out there? Who is gonna be liable for that? Because there is pasture on both sides, on the north and the south, as well as a residential house that is just adjacent to where the safety danger zone is gonna be.
Where 6-year-olds run around
So,
and play.
the city is gonna carry the insurance on this. So if anything happens, we do have insurance, but like Jackie mentioned, the baffles and all the berms, they're gonna design it to keep everything in the range. Not saying it, like I said, if someone uses the range wrong, yes, there could be some potential. Getting back to Dennis's question, why aren't we using Casanova Game Production Area? That land was sold to us by the Casanova family to make it into a hunting area. So we have an agreement with that family that when we bought it, we were gonna make it into a hunting location and have it for wildlife. So that was bought with different money than we use for range projects. And like I said, even the additions we put on that with the Wilson addition, same thing there. When we bought it, the thing was that those families wanted to stay for wildlife and not be broke up and farmed and stuff like that. So that's why Casanova Game Production Area hasn't been looked at. Like I said, I'm the one that called Mike Scott, and big thing in Brown County, we're in flat country, and we need big dirt berms to stop bullets. And with my knowledge of the county, the biggest mound we have in Brown County is landfill. And with all the fill out there, I brought to Mike and asked him, is there a potential? And that's how this conversation got going. Mike told us, no, not in the landfill, we can't do that for safety concerns and all the other permits they have. But then that land to the east was offered as a potential site. So that's how we got to this location.
So there'd be no way that the agreement with the Casanovas that could be changed in order to put it out?
We haven't looked at that because that's when we bought that land from them, or, you know, that was the agreement at the time. Not saying we couldn't go back and visit, but that's why that hasn't been looked at, is because we told them when we bought that, that would be a wildlife area.
Yeah, see, this quarter land was bought with the intent of, at some point, expansion of the landfill, and I guess it'd be, you know, pretty important as far as how it's laid in there as to how it would affect future cells and anything else that would go along with expanding the landfill too. So you know, all those things have to be taken into consideration.
Because that's the next area you go to. You just did your last sell to
Right.
the southwest corner of the land, so that's your last sell, so the next sell is gonna go, no.
Mike?
No,
Oh.
Mike, you wanna talk about?
I just didn't know how far away you
How many
are
more
from
cells you got in the
expanding.
current
We
quarter?
just finished our fourth cell, is the one that we dug out of 12. So we've got about another 75 years to 80 years left on site where we're at right now.
And the useful life of range for that Pittman-Robertson grant is 20 years. So after that, we can demolish the whole thing and it goes back, or we can continue.
Why is that only 20 years?
That's just the conditions for the Pittman-Robertson grant, that's what they
Oh, the
consider.
grant, not
Yeah,
the land
well,
itself.
Yeah,
Land.
not the
Right.
land itself, it's just the useful life of that facility, that's.
It could be refurbished at that point, couldn't
Right,
it?
yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
How,
Decide what to do.
question for Mike, how many years have the cells been averaging as far as what we've been told when they're dug, and how long have they lasted, then when we've had to dig another cell? I mean, I don't think they've lasted as long as what we've been told that they were supposed to last either, isn't that correct?
Yeah, depending on waste streams, and the thing to keep in mind too, when we talk about volume available, it's airspace, and there's vertical airspace that hasn't been utilized yet when we talk about the life of a cell. Right now, we're staying at all our volume that we're utilizing is below grade essentially, and then once we build out enough cells, then we can start to work above grade, and then we'd have a longer period of time where we wouldn't be constructing cells.
But what is the actual, I mean, if you're saying it lasts 20 years, is it lasting 10 years? Is it lasting 12 years? I mean, your cells.
So, we do a formula.
Because I know,
where
I
we
work
kept-
at 3M, okay, and I know we've probably tripled or quadrupled our amount we're sending out there. So them cells are gonna fill up a lot faster.
And some of that waste volume has changed and gone back to Minneapolis also, some of the bulky material, so that's helped us.
75 to 80 more years, and they're bought that land to expand. Sometimes, as I said, the life of the range is like 20 years. Why are you spending millions of dollars to build it in the first place if it's only going to last 20 years and then you're going to destroy it? Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, it doesn't say that it's gonna be destroyed after 20 years. The financing commitment is that it will operate for a minimum of 20 years.
So you have to refinance after 20 years?
No, it's an initial investment that this money's available for. It's the same thing that the Sportsman's Club used significant amount of that money to establish their range. That 20 years has come and gone. They've explored the possibility, I believe, potentially using it. That was part of, the previous conversation, when we talked about potentially expanding that site and so forth.
Right, but I don't think my name is Bill Bowen, I'm the vice president of the club. I don't think we ever hit a dead end on that. I think COVID came along and the whole discussion kind of disappeared. Because 2/3 of what we're talking about here that's available at Watertown is already available down here south of town at the club.
Right.
We talked about expanding to the west, but I don't know that it ever really got properly investigated. Because all we need to do is probably acquire just a few acres to the west, if it's available, and if there's a willing seller, obviously, a few acres to the west to go out to that 200 or 300 yard range. So the statement that Ms. Irmer made at the very beginning that we weren't interested, that isn't correct. That is not a correct statement. It was just other things came up, COVID being a big deal. As far as I'm concerned, the door was always open with the city when we were first talking about with the city to let's see what we can do cooperatively. Now, we may not have been willing to say, well, here's the property, just take it and run, but there's still an ability to do a cooperative venture there, I think.
And it was actually voted on in the club and the board to proceed with it before COVID slammed the door on everything.
Well, I apologize for that. I wasn't
Yeah.
at that initial meeting. That was what was handed down to me, so.
Years ago or thereabouts.
I'd like to hear the rest of the presentation, because you said
Right.
this is a potential
Yeah.
site. Do you address, is there other potentials in here?
Well, I don't have the different layouts. Like I mentioned, we were looking at the line pit north of town and just, how wet it is and how far you'd have to bring the fill into that site. Kind of knock that one down, and if Brian's still on there, he's the expert, I guess, on the engineering side of this stuff too. And, he was trying to run these some of these surface danger zones on just different areas around Aberdeen to see where things go in that red line that you see there, that hash line. And obviously, you know, Mr. Gobb with the city had mentioned that, you know, Aberdeen's expanding and likely to expand to the northeast, so we, you know, kind of, we're staying away from that area a little bit. South seems to be really wet.
Why are you staying away from that area if you don't want, are you concerned about that hindering expansion by having a gun range?
Well, depending on how it expands, I guess the city, if that would be right in the middle.
But Watertown is inside the city limits?
Yep, it's just on the south side.
In city limits, but still out of town, it's not as if it's in town.
Yes, not right in the
Right,
center
right.
of town.
But
It's on the
city-
south
it's in
edge.
the city limits.
Yeah, on the
Limits, right,
south
but
edge
on the
of
south
town,
edge
so.
of the city.
Is there a need for a second gun range around Aberdeen?
Well, that's what we were, you know, again, I wasn't at that initial meeting, so I apologize for that, and what, so we were looking, you know, with the, all the recreational shooters, and that's where a lot of this Pittman-Robertson money, all that excise tax comes from. It's not necessarily hunters, it's the shooters, and so, you know, it's also Game Fish and Parks' responsibility and, you know, a priority for us to provide a safe spot for all these shooters to go. And so with that is open to the public, free to the public. So, you know, if we work with Brown County Sportsman Club, we can revisit that. That would be something, you know, maybe part of it is then open free to the public and part of it's still a membership. I don't know what that would look like, but.
I think at that meeting, what we talked about was that the city, and of course, the county wasn't involved at that point. If the city was going to be maintaining it, and if the city would be taking care of the liability, we didn't care if it was free. Didn't matter, because we have to generate a little bit of money to replace all the targets that get shot up now. We have to mow it. A lot of us are just volunteers doing a lot of the mowing and things of that sort. But if we have another entity, be it the county, be it the city, whoever, that maintains it and provides liability protection on it, I really don't think there'd be an objection.
See, to your question, I don't think there's a need for a second facility, but I think there's a distinct need for longer bays.
And for better hours.
How many bays do you guys have down there, Bill?
Well, we have, well, on the rifle side, which is a 100-yard range, it's 12. People can shoot at shorter ranges than 100. And then on the handgun side, it's a normal handgun range. There's no, I don't think they have a fixed lane or anything.
We
But
have-
it'd be easy to do it there because it's already there.
Yeah.
We have 4 set-up benches to shoot from for safety, but...
Yeah, the only rub is that 100 yards is the max.
Right, that's why...
And it's gotten commonplace, 300 yards is still even kind of a minimum.
you have to pay to get into it.
Right.
Mike, but I would think it would be a better option to upgrade a facility if we've got money available to add those ranges, is that longer range if possible, as opposed to building a whole new facility.
I would agree with that, and I facilitated those conversations, and I wouldn't say that they broke down, but they stalled. And so there were conversations going, what other options do we have? Because I brought the maps of who owned the railroad right-of-way that would have to be acquired, and who owned the rest of the property, you know, to the south and to the west, and looking for options there and stuff, and, you know, being a member and loving and enjoying, you know, participating in the things that happen. I would love nothing more than, you know, to have the Sportsman's Club, you know, be the location for this. And I guess, but I'm not part of the leadership of that group, and if this would potentially spark that conversation to go forward again,
I have a question for Jackie. Would these funds be available to refurbish a current place versus building a new? Because some of your grants get specific as far as what you can do. So will that grant, if a deal would be worked out with the landowner behind the current, would that grant be able to be used, or does it have to be a new facility?
And Graham, if you're on here, he's our federal aid coordinator and the expert on this, but I believe, because that was part of it, that we could use some PR grant application if we needed to add, if we wanted to add a 200 and a 300 yard bay, or, you know, the purchase of property. So, Graham, if you're on and you want to explain a little bit more how that grant works, or... That's good, yes, I mean, it
Yeah,
would be
I'm
available.
on, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
We got a dumber for lunch.
And for horse racing.
We got a buyer.
I apologize, Bruce, I thought I had it shut off.
So what are the chances of being able to purchase that land to the west?
Well, maybe that's where I've dropped the ball, and maybe Mike's done more on that. I really thought that whole thing, as COVID came onto the picture, and I think there was a change at the city from Linlander to Mr. Gah, and I just thought things just sort of faded away until when I saw the resurrected idea for doing it with the county. So I think a little of our interest or a little bit of our enthusiasm was just, well, I guess the interest is gone now. So we did do our best by expanding it down there with members being able to come 7 days a week now. There's no range masters. We have some people that still would prefer to do it on days where there's range masters. We've had a few complaints from some people where the procedure is that once people are done shooting and you're going down range to check the target, actions are supposed to be open, the firearm is supposed to be on the bench, and we've had some complaints that isn't happening. So you get into the situation of the person that doesn't feel safe now, do they get into a confrontation with the guy that's got his gun laying there with the action closed or not? So there, you have a few things when you don't have a supervisor where you have some issues. But Watertown, I talked with their folks a year ago, unless they've come up with a new system, they said they were having a pretty expensive situation with replacing the targets. Not the steel targets at long range, but they're using horse mats or something for their backstops, and they were, I think he said they went to runnings, and they were $30 or $40 a piece, and they were replacing them quite often. So there were some complaints about maintenance, but I guess getting back to the land west of us, I don't know. I don't know if we really hit a dead end on that or not.
I know there's a lot of discussion. Can we continue on
Sure,
with
yeah.
the presentation? Because I think it would be good if we could all move downstairs. There's more room, everybody can hear. We get to the presentation. I don't know if Graham, you have something to talk about at all, or?
I was just gonna touch on some of the Pittman-Robertson stipulations that we do have. I heard in the background about possibly purchasing land. That's a different beast with Pittman-Robertson. A lot of times when you're purchasing land, GFMP has to purchase the land, and GFMP keeps it in their name if we're gonna be using grant funds. So that's where a lot of hang-ups end up happening, is they need help purchasing the land, but we cannot unless GFMP owns it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of the property, if you were gonna acquire property and put longer lanes in it, I think that's the whole purpose here, is trying to find a suitable place to use these resources to provide a longer range lanes available to the public, however that happens to be. That most of the rest of that quarter belongs to the gun club, and the only part of it that would have to be acquired is the portion of the previous railroad right-of-way that's in private ownership, if memory serves me correctly, which I think is potentially possible.
I'd have to talk to my brother. We own the right-of-way that goes right behind the club, and the Brown County, the Aberdeen Gun Club owns the rest, so Jerry and I are here kind of on that regard. I don't see why we wouldn't sell it. I talked to my brother about it at one time, and we had also said that there's a possibility you're talking about fill dirt.
Yep.
There's a big pond back there already, or a pit back there already. There's a bunch of dirt available. You could just make that pond bigger. And also, there's a ditch cut behind that tree line where dirt was taken out before. The rest of that railroad grade, if you were to purchase our property, the rest of that old grade could be dug out and put in the berms. So that would cheapen up the project right there, because the dirt would be right there.
So, sounds like that's got potential to be worked out pretty
Well, I know that,
amicably.
like Bill said, we've been at a couple different meetings regarding this thing, and And it kind of sounded like that's the way it was kind of headed at one point. But then COVID and everything went.
Right, okay. So the one next question I would have with my history in the conversation is the city's, you know, wants to be a participant in this and also have access to it for usage, for training and so forth, and I've had the pleasure of being a reserve police officer and participated in a fair amount of that. Is that a conversation and a potential solution that, at least initially, worth pursuing, Joe?
Yeah, I'll stick my head in here. I've been quietly listening to the whole. I'm Joe Gahn, the city administrator, city manager for Aberdeen. I want to address some of Bill's comments first. When this was first brought to the city, it was brought to the city by the game fish and parks about, hey, we know there'd been some discussion, do you still want to talk about this? And our answer was, if we can relocate our law enforcement range and get more public access to shooting sports, that's a win. If we can do it as affordable as possible, that's even better. So we started looking at sites that were already owned by the city. That went south really fast. It moved to this site, and it hasn't really gotten any farther. I'm just going to say I'm not a big shooting sports enthusiast. I like guns. I have a couple. I don't hunt. Some of the people in this room do. And I'm kind of hearing that this is not what the shooting enthusiasts in the county want to see. So I don't know that city-wise we want to put anything on the table until there's a plan that the shooting enthusiasts support. We could relocate our shooting range, our law enforcement range, and resolve many of the issues the folks in here have addressed. It won't gain public access. Maybe that's the way to do it, and then maybe letting the shooting clubs work on how to expand their facilities and gain public access. That could accomplish both of those. But I'm not real comfortable from what I've heard moving forward with what the city's position is, because I don't know right now that we have one.
This is also a very small portion of our population too. Obviously, there's a lot of people here that are landlords nearby that have concerns, which is great. But just because these few people are at the meeting, we also have to consider that as well. The calls that Game Fish and Parks receive, the sheriff's office receives, and stuff like that about dangerous situations, about people shooting in unsafe places in the county. So,
How many of those calls do you get a year?
what's that?
How many of those calls do you get a year?
I bet you I get between 50 to 70 calls a year of people shooting in areas that are concerning other people, so.
Yeah, but are they actually positions that are against the law or unethical, or just that somebody doesn't like?
No, a lot of them are someone doesn't like because they're worried about a backstop situation, so.
On that note, I called about something this fall with you, and, so I live out west of Aberdeen, not too far from there.
Yep.
There's unimproved roads out there, and we get a lot of shooters.
Yep.
And we also get a lot of people dumping trash out there when the landfill's closed.
Yep.
All over. Someone has a pickup load of stuff. So, as far as that goes, I believe if this was put out by the landfill, it would draw people out there, and we'd have a lot more of it in that area.
Just because
So,
fireworks
that-
stand out in the county
That's a
doesn't mean it
double-edged
stops
sword
either.
when you're talking about that. If people have a place to go, they should do it more law-abiding, but right now, people are out there planking birds off of power lines and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're drawn out there. But if you had some place for them to go, maybe it wouldn't. But then you'd have to do the access stuff too, but just because it's out there doesn't mean it's gonna, and then you give them some good place to go, and
Correct.
it's gonna, when it's not available, it's gonna be drawing a lot of people out there.
That's why we're just trying to have something, so when we get the calls, we can tell people, there's a facility, it's right here, this is how you get to it. Like I said, it's not gonna solve all the world's problems. We understand that. Do we need to stay on topic?
I guess one of the things that probably came up that I'm gonna point out is, Joe pointed out that he doesn't know how much skin the city wants to put into this conversation. I understand his concern. But the other side of it is, do we accomplish the same thing by expanding that site? And the police officer could then use that site, it would be probably conform to the same type of way you're looking at the landfill. I don't know that anybody's set on a certain area. I realize there's concerns, but you've got a gun range down there already. Would it be a big concern if you were to expand that to a 300-yard range, widen it, put all the nice facility down there? Would you have the same amount of people opposed to it? I don't know that.
Correct.
But I think we're at a stalemate here. If the city is saying, hold it here, well, we don't want to do this. Well, the county, all we're doing is putting the land out there. We're not involved in the other part. So I think we got to have a different conversation at this point, because I think where we're at is totally stalled out. Now, that's my opinion. And I think, you know, maybe some of the things we need to do is pick up and look at what can be done at the current site. Can it be expanded? Will there be the same problems? I mean, I don't know that.
And that was phase one. So myself, I'm the conservation officer here in Brown County, and my district conservation officer supervisor, Joel Galbraith, were tasked with, hey, just start getting the ball rolling. Let's start asking questions. Our first, phase one, was to go to the Brown County Sportsman's Club. I'm a very thrifty person, and I'm thinking, man, there's a range already there. If we could expand that, great. Unfortunately, those conversations did stall. The last two meetings we had with the group got very negative, and it got to the point where we thought, if we're even going to get this range built, we might have to look at other avenues. Not that that's off the table, but that's how this will probably be phase 3 or 4, came along, is because that opportunity was there. Like I said, we can visit both sites still. The whole purpose of this meeting today is to talk to the Brown County Commission and see if we can possibly continue on moving forward with this public range. That's why we're here today.
I would just like to quickly address your concerns
Yep.
about the shooting on ditchways and stuff. I don't think that's gonna solve that problem. Only two concerns I have about that is, number one, it's $50 a year for membership. I don't think their concern is going and paying a $50 a year membership. Second thing is, if they're illegally out shooting and plinking birds off hay wires or telephone wires, whatever, those aren't the kind of people I want shooting at a range anyway. They're probably gonna be shooting there slightly illegal too, careless, so.
Yeah, but we do get a lot of people there just out shooting. They're trying to be as safe as they can, but they don't have a location to go. And it concerns some
Do they
people, because
go
if there's a vehicle coming down the other way with a section line.
Right,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's what our concern is.
But are they aware of the range down there, or they just don't know it exists, or?
A lot of people
You
are
bring
aware,
that up.
a lot of people are aware, but the problem we've had, I've been here for 16 years as the game warden, is when that facility's open. That's how this whole idea got sprung up, to have a public facility that's open from sunrise to sunset, 7 days a week. We understand why the Brown County Sportsman's Club has closures, had range masters. That's what they were required by their insurance. The gate thing is still there, but also with the game fish and parks, our goal is to have free places as well. Some people, $50 is a lot to them, maybe to be a part of a group or something like that. And that's maybe not what they're into. That's why we're here today. If we thought the Brown County Sportsman's Club covered every avenue of everything, we wouldn't be having these discussions. That was identified, and that's why we're here.
If I can break in real quick, because I talk to a lot of the shooters and stuff like that. I'm Lucas with Young Guns. I get a lot of people that come in, buy a gun, where can I go shoot this? Sportsman's Club. Okay, where's it at? Down here, you need to buy a $10, and they still do that usually. Or they buy a $50 membership, but there are those people that, I'm not gonna pay that, I'm just gonna go shoot on the side of the road or whatever, I'll just go shoot down. So I get a lot of it, and you know me, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I get a lot of it. People, weekly, that are gonna go shoot down the section line because that's the easy place to go. If there was I like what Sportsman's Club did with being able to have a safer environment to, get in with the keys and stuff like that, to where they don't have to worry. I think it's a good idea to have one part that you gotta be a member to be in, one part that you don't have to be a member to be in. You're gonna usually have the people that wanna be a member are gonna be in the safer part, and the other people, now, I think it's all safe really when it comes down to it, but we do get a lot of that. As far as people shooting stuff, different places, you're gonna have that no matter where you go, whether you pay a fee or not. But I see a lot of people that are going down section lines and stuff like that. And if you remember the deal a few years ago with the kid shot his dad on the section line, if anybody remembers that in the news. That was a bridge up there that people shot at all the time, and I'd been up there before with people. And that could have been probably avoided if we would have had a place to go. And the Sportsman's Club deal is brand new, so 2 years ago, we didn't have the Sportsman's Clubs open all the time. So this is a whole different conversation, because at that point, we didn't have this available. Now, we do have it available, so they can go there 24/7, or not 24/7, but they can go there whenever they want to. So things have changed in the 2 years from, at that time, there was only 2 nights a week or whatever at the Sportsman's Club to now, $50 membership, and you can do whatever you want, pretty much.
And
The time.
$50 is a box of shells. I mean, in all reality nowadays, when you go
Right. I have
at
people
rifle.
that buy $1,000 guns that won't spend $50.
But-
Gotta understand.
Yep.
But
But
that
at the same-
$50, that's unlimited all year long. If somebody wants to get ready to go West River deer hunting or East River deer hunting and they want to just come down one day, it's $10. So it's, I don't want the 50 to get ingrained in people's heads that that's the only option. There are other options. But as I said, just if we have either city or county taking care of liability and maintenance, it can be free.
That was my question. I believe the proposed site that you were offering under Game Fish and Parks under that was a free site all the way through. So that would be something that you'd have to work out with the Sportsman's Club. If they're looking to get rid of the liability, which I understand there's a huge liability to that, if they can eliminate that, and if the city can say, well, yeah, we go along with that, if the people, it's already a gun range, that would be their, you got a lot of decisions to be made here yet just before you can do this. And I think we probably need to firm up what the city, what the sportsmen, Game Fish and Park would look at this site and say, yeah, this may work. And if it doesn't work, then come back and we look at this site again. I mean, that's kind of what I'm gathering here. I think it's a win. I think it's a nice place to have it.
I think you're right, Doug. I'm on the same page. This was kind of a proposal to see if this site was available. I don't think anybody wants you to make that decision today. I think you're right, put it back on the table. I'm hearing the shooting clubs want to take another shot at this. So let's be very clear. The state came to us with a proposal that was a good teamwork approach. We've set aside some money that can be used. If the land was available for free from another governmental agency, that was a good win. So I think we just kind of table this for a minute and give the shooting clubs an opportunity to bring a proposal back to us and say, okay, we've heard what you're trying to accomplish. Here's what we could do on our side. I think it's worth doing that. Then if that falls apart, we're hearing maybe that fell apart, maybe it didn't, then we can come back to this site. I think that's probably a good option.
I would like to add neighbors out there, is that right? Other people in here that I recognize.
I live in the red zone.
What's that?
I live in the red zone up there.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for being nervous. Now, I'm across the road to the north of the Brown County Sportsman's Club. I'm to the east of it, and I'm also just that strip to the west of it. The people down there, we're used to it. We're used to that gun range being down there, and it's not gonna make a big deal. Granted, I'm not downrange. I'm on the other side of it. But there really isn't much of anything downrange to the west of there. There are some houses to the south that might not be too happy about it, but they've already got the shooting going on, and let's face it, the berms are gonna do the job that the berms are supposed to do until you get somebody that doesn't want the bullet stopping at the berms. That's the only time that bullet is gonna get out of those berms or out of those baffles, right, Nick? You gotta be aiming to miss. And that person's gonna do that kind of stuff no matter where you put this. So, or no matter if they're shooting out in the middle of nowhere. You gotta keep that part in mind. The people down there are used to this. You're not gonna have these people and fighting it.
It's gonna be a smoother road.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got a question there?
Well, I'm just agreeing, like, I'm gonna be a lot smoother going on Temple Road, like, he's in the red zone. This red zone is where my daughter and her cousin, who are 6 years old, play. I'm not willing to be comfortable with any kind of safety, aiming this way or aiming that way. My 6-year-old's in the red zone. I don't appreciate that. I would not want that. I mean, she goes and rides her horses out there. There's cattle out there. I mean, I grew up out there, and I just ran. I mean, my kid cut my hair. Obviously, she doesn't make good decisions.
Well, it looks to me like also the improved design, with the way it's designed, if your berm is 20, 30 feet and you're sitting inside your tunnel, you really can't get your gun above the berm unless you're shooting at the top of your tunnel where it's enclosed. The way it looks to me like it's designed that you can only raise your gun so high in that shooting lane. Now, currently, I don't believe that's like that out there, is it?
It was. There were baffles, but they started deteriorating. The design when they did it was baffles with pea gravel inside to stop the bullets, and whether it was a faulty design to begin with, but they began deteriorating, the rocks started coming out. But our berms are, I think, even higher than what I see at Watertown. I mean, we have some, the one at the backstop that's gotta be 30 foot high, maybe more.
Like Harlan said, these are designed to trap bullets if shot at the benches properly. Yeah, if someone goes to the parking lot and rattles rounds up in the sky, I mean, yeah, that's not what the design for this range is.
As you pointed out in my kitchen, there's no guarantee that a bullet won't get out of there.
We cannot tell anybody that there absolutely will never be a bullet that leaves this range. That cannot be a promise to any range built at anywhere in any location.
But with children in the red zone, shouldn't you be able to guarantee that before you put a facility up like that?
Well, I think we probably need to move on and let the appropriate parties get together and see what the south side looks like. Does that kind of what I'm hearing? Joe, you kind of agree? I don't know what Game Fish and Parks, if you're Sportsman Club, I think those are the parties that probably need to get together and say, hey, can we make this work? And I think we're talking about a moot point at this point where we're at. Let's go back to the original and see where that goes.
Is there a deadline on this grant, and how much money are we talking? Because a grant only provides, what, 75% of it?
It's usually a 75-25% match. It could be up to 90-10, but generally it's been that 75-25 lately. There are deadlines to submit the application, and then we couldn't start construction or anything until everything was approved through the Fish and Wildlife Service. So it's done like on a quarterly basis. So there are some deadlines for that, but if you don't hit the October one, then you go for the April one or whatever those are.
So there's more down the road. It's not like you have to do it right now.
So far.
Well, yeah. Yes and no. I mean, like I said, Aberdeen was one of the 3 priority areas in the state. There are other areas that are very interested in putting in an application for this funding. So, you know, if we wait too long, there are other cities around the state that have the money available and they want to get moving on it, but Aberdeen is one of the priority areas given the population. So we kind of want to give it this.
One other question I had, and this is probably for the Sportsman Club. Are you guys at max capacity? Are people standing in line waiting to use the range?
There might be a few days, but most of the time now, especially when people can go out wherever they want.
Yes.
There's a few times, in the past when we were only open like for this time of the year, we'd be open on Saturdays and Sundays for people to get ready for the fall seasons. And there would be times where you'd have all of the lanes full and a couple people waiting, but that would have been the exception for. But the money that they mentioned is a concern, though. That's why the Sportsman's Club would need to team with somebody with some money, because 25% of let's just say, I'm going to pull a number out of the air. Let's say it's going to take $250,000 or $300,000 to add the 300 or 400 foot lanes with the berm, because a lot of the other facilities are already there, but for that. Well, 25% of that, the Brown County Sportsman Club doesn't have $75,000 for that 25% of the 300, if I did my math right.
Was that originally what the city was looking at, as paying portion of that grant to be out there? Was that?
We have some money for matching, but I'm not gonna guarantee it at this point.
I'm just trying to narrow this down a little bit.
We may have to do some fundraising. They do that in other communities. The Rapid City Range they're looking at is like a $9 million facility. We're not looking at anything like that, you know. So I think, you know, Bill, we'll sit down again and talk about it and see if we can come up with something. And, you know, like I said, we just wanted to bring this up because we've been looking, so it's good to get some input, to hear some concerns, and
yeah, been exploring some opportunities, and there's been, you know, some questions and some rumors, so it's time to, you know,
we're just trying to keep the ball rolling, because like what happened, we've been talking about this for probably 3 years, just bouncing ideas around. Well, this year, when Rapid City sprung theirs, they took all the money, every dime. So we were thinking, okay, if we can get going, maybe by 2022 there might be some funds. That doesn't mean another town will say, yep, absolutely, we'll have one here, boom, money gone. So that's the hard part with grants, is that it might not be here forever. And that's why I want to keep this ball rolling. Not saying we want to push this and get this going so fast that no one's happy and it messes up everything, that's not our intention, but we do have to keep the ball rolling, so.
Well, I truly believe it'd be a good addition to Aberdeen, because we have a lot of people that hunt, shoot, and, you know, I hate to have another city end up with it, and then we sit here with, you know, always the low dog on the totem pole. I would, if it's grant money, yeah, there's always something to be paid with grant money, but when you got grant money and you can put a nice facility together, it's also a big plus for the community. So I think the thing is now is location, and try to figure out if, and it sounds to me like, you know, much like the gentleman said, they're used to it down there. I think it'd be a lot easier to sell than where we're at now, but I think we need to do more discussion and get the parties involved. Anything else?
You guys interested and willing to start the conversations again and see what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
The sooner the better, really.
All right.
Can we just ask as landowners that if it doesn't happen to work out for this, with the Sportsman's Club, that we be notified that this is a potential location again for this site?
Absolutely.
Okay, and not in the aftermath of it, it's like, oh, it's getting semi-pushed through at the beginning
Well,
like
this
it is
train
now.
has not left the station by any stretch
That's
of
all
the
that we're
imagination.
asking.
I just wanna point one more thing out to my neighbors. They're looking at putting a nice berm in front of me to protect me, but if a bullet comes your direction, good luck.
Well, I'd really like to add something to that. Right now, so let's say there's a 100-foot berm all the way around your house, and maybe even we'll put a roof on your house. If that bullet's coming in from a hunter 2 counties away, it's still coming in.
You know, there was somebody
I
outside my
realize-
house last Friday night, stopped on the road, firing a gun in the air, and you tell me why.
Because you can.
You
Yeah.
can't fix stupid, that's
Okay.
why. You know?
And building this range anywhere else is not gonna fix that. Will not take that away. The morons right now that won't do it safe, aren't gonna do it safe, you give them a place to do it.
You know,
They want it free, they want it now, and they'll just do what they want. They are
Well,
already
you
doing
do
it.
everything that you can to minimize risk
Yeah.
with certain things. It's
Yeah.
a different subject, and I understand it, I have the same concerns, because I don't want anybody hurt no matter what it is.
We could
But I
argue
also
this
have
point all
some,
day.
I also have some familiarity with the airport operations and so forth, and where the bank and the Menards are, kitty corner across from the airport is a high danger zone, and people still go to Menards to shop because of the airport activity.
If you look at our police
So-
range now, if you go down to our police range, there's a berm on one side, they shoot into the berm to the south. The beef plant's right there, the sewage treatment plant's right there, there's houses
The
right
waste
there.
treatment plant's right across the
I mean,
road.
everything's right there, and how, nobody's been shot.
But at the same.
Okay, but if
just
you're in a
argument
red
against
zone and you
that,
have one person
You've got
shoot a
police
gun
officers
there,
down there
do you want
shooting.
100
I
more?
hope for God our police officers are safe with their guns. You know,
You
if they're
don't know
not,
them
they
very
don't
well,
need to be
Lou.
on the force. You know, I'm sorry, that just comes up. as-
Sorry, Mike, I've seen you guys
know.
shoot.
I've seen a police officer shoot here.
Well, I'm just saying.
We're not jumping.
All right, you guys.
I think we're on a different subject.
Wayne had a question.
Can I have
Wayne-
one other
Wayne had a question.
Is there any way that the county can put if something takes place, a noise ordinance on? Late at night is what I'm talking, because I understand the city has a noise ordinance, right?
It's closed in the dark, so.
Okay, that's my point I'm getting across. This is private, I mean, a guy.
Private situation.
Private situation. We have a guy in our area that, the other night at 11:15, he's out there just pop, 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 pop.
Okay, just a totally different.
Right, that's for the county, because I realize that's a county.
If
Just something to
if
think
we had
about.
extra funds for somebody to go enforce it, that'd be fine.
Well, and me as a hunter, and I go spotlighting, which is completely legal, on my own ground, trying to get rid of the varmints and stuff like that, you're just gonna shut me down with that.
Well, how about the South Sale Barn or the Sale Barn when they're selling cabs in the fall of the year? And the people in Eisenhower Circle.
I walk up-
Pretty tough for the county to put on a noise ordinance.
House.
Right, I understand that, but there is a noise ordinance for stuff in the city, right?
Yeah.
There is, yeah. And I'm just saying, is there any way a county can do that, so we don't have this guy shooting guns? Because I mean, he's been called in, and they come out, and well, they can't do nothing. He's on his property. That's what I'm just trying to get across.
Enforcement would be the biggest issue.
They'd be citing the railroad 10 times a night.
Yeah, could I?
I may have missed this, but I was just curious, what is the difference between where the location is now compared to where you're talking about in your house? What is the difference in the safety protocol, or the
Well,
supervision?
depends on what
Completely
houses
same?
and things like that, but, I mean, the
What is it?
ranges have been
What is it
designed
right
by Corps of Engineers, by the military.
But I mean, who enforces like the rules, or, you know, anything
Like
like that?
how
Is there
high the
anybody
berms
out there?
get built,
No,
or-
as far as making sure there's not idiots out there.
Oh, so that'd be
Like
up
a
to
big pack of 'em.
the county, basically, or, I mean, like I said, if I'm driving by there and I see someone doing something, I'm looking
So if
in there
you're,
and
just
take
if
care
you're
of it.
driving by. So if you
And
get.
there's there'll be video.
There's video cameras,
We
but
can
then that's too late
implement whatever.
if once the shot's fired, you know.
Another thing that will maybe help with the riffraff and the problems down there is you've got a very busy highway right next to it.
Exactly.
And if you
That's one of
put
the
this thing
reasons
out
it
in
was
the country, a
cited
little
there.
more off the
People
beaten
go to the
path,
landfill to
people are
do
gonna have
stupid
more of a
stuff 'cause
tendency
there
to
isn't
misbehave
much.
than when they're right there
Catch 'em.
and a highway patrol, sheriff, somebody could come by, Nick, at any moment, you know? I mean, if I was gonna do something, I'd rather do it out in the middle of nowhere, out by your farm or something like that, than right next to a highway.
We're lit up.
Can we do that,
So-
do this?
No.
So if they're gonna go, I mean, they could go out
we
there and they
wanna-
could be drinking and firing. There's no supervision. I mean, in town, you're, like he said, there's a lot more eyes out there. Yeah,
But
there's a lot more deterrent
There's
out
also a lot of
in the
county
middle of nowhere.
employees
That's why
that
people
work at the
go and do
landfill
those
too,
type of
that
things.
will be willing to assist.
What's that?
There's also a lot of county employees that work at the landfill
From
too.
8 to 5.
But I'm just
What are
saying,
the hours?
What's that?
What are the hours of
Sunrise
the
to
facility?
sunset.
Okay.
Or less than that.
Landfill's
We don't
8 to
have
5.
the hours.
Yeah, but that's what they do in
It could be
Watertown.
8 AM to.
Because usually if people are gonna do
Yeah,
something
so-
stupid, it's not gonna be between the hours of 8 and 5. It's
So
gonna be.
you
the hours
guys are
of 8 to
interested
5.
in getting more involved back in the conversation?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm gonna say, me or Ray or both of us will represent the Sportsman's Club. Is the county gonna have a representative? Who do we meet with at Game Fish and Parks? Is the city gonna have a representative? It seems to me, and then maybe, the guys that own the land, but I think we better get everybody there to know, can we work something out, or are we gonna hit a dead end with it?
Well, I think, Joe is gonna be involved, the city, Game Fish and Parks, yourself, landowner, I guess you're the one that.
And
The Aberdeen Gun Club owns the land.
And I think those are the parties that basically just have to sit down and say, okay, can this possible work? I think that's all you gotta do is start seeing if everybody's on board with it, and then take and run from there. I mean, I think this discussion brought that to life, is what it did.
Correct.
And I think that's probably where we need to start with that and see where that goes, and if it doesn't go anywhere, then we kick the can again.
We show up here again.
Yeah.
There's more discussion.
Or not, so, fair enough.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the input.
Thanks, guys, for coming.
So we get,
Of just the
did I do that right? We get to come out and shoot at your place?
Oh, absolutely. My neighbor's doing it every night, all the way into sun, boom, boom, boom.
We're here every
I
week.
hear it,
We're
yeah.
visitors.
7 o'clock at night,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We got them shooting down there all the time. My cabs are belling and they're shooting.
Trying to shut the cabs down.
Yeah, right.
All right, thanks, everyone.
All right. The other night,
I'd like
my
to
wife
say
said,
something in the next couple of weeks.
firecrackers. I said,
We'll
no,
do that.
I'm not right.
Go for it.
They got a little bird back there.
I've been going hunting.
All the time.
No, that's December.
Thanks, everybody.
I had to drag my computer up, remember how to make a surface danger zone. Oh, my goodness, cause I downloaded the whole Army manual, how to do that.
That's such a subject, I'm dangerous to shop at Menards, too.
So I literally sat down last night and reviewed this thing, and did all the danger zones around it again, and
Good.
Okay.
All right, thanks for coming.
Next item on the agenda, we have the county burn ban.
Probably.
Mr. Scott Mike.
Yay!
Scotty, you're right.
you know, next time I could've slept a little later.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Sorry.
Yeah, usually it's dirt that ties it.
Try and be on time.
Every time we go to these community projects, it never goes as smooth.
I know, and I didn't
All
even
right.
think when I walked in the door, I'm like, holy cow, I hope these people aren't here for the burn ban. Anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody should've got a copy
Yes.
of the draft. So let me tell you how I kinda put this together. This was put together with, lots of feedback from lots of folks. We had,
Obviously, we had Mr. Johnson in here from out on the west side of the state. I used some of his examples that he brought us, some of his feedback, some feedback from some local county
We
folks.
can't shut that door, but we can ask him, we ask him to be quiet.
We can almost shut it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Most of the way, yeah.
Thank you.
If you could, yeah, there's a lot of.
And also looking at what we had on the books currently and what's out there for state codified law. So, like I said, that's kind of where we are with it. The biggest changes, there's a couple of them, I think I pointed them out in the email, was the use of the Grassland Fire Index, which was, I believe, proposed by both landowners, Mr. Johnson, and some of the other entities that we looked at, or other counties. And then the penalties that go along with this, that state law has since changed. Those are probably the two biggest changes. Some of it is the same, still calling in a control burn, you know, before you light it to dispatch, so we have record and things like that. None of that stuff has really changed. So.
Well, I appreciate you put a lot of work into this and have lots of different considerations, both what other people do and then making sure we don't run afoul of state law. And it's not perfect, but nothing is, but using the fire index, that kind of takes it out of our discretion, if you will. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but it is a consistent index that's based on whatever parameters go into establishing that. And it's something that's very public that people can reference.
I know Kent from the Communication Center had a little bit of concern about people just calling in and asking if they can burn and tying up his folks. That was one of his concerns with, you know, with using the Grassland Fire Index. They're not going to go look. They're just going to call in and say, I need to burn. Can I do that today? You know, and his statement was, you know, okay, it's not my folks' responsibility to look to see if you can burn. We have 911 calls to answer, not be worried about that.
See, and I think that question was asked of Mr. Johnson when he was in here. It's kind of a learning process.
And it would be.
Yeah.
You know, and we can put it on the county webpage, you know, a link to that so that it updates daily.
Right.
And things like that. You know, that's not an issue, it's just that people are gonna have to find the initiative to go out and look, so.
And they'll have to be told if they call into dispatch, you know, we can't tell you, here's the, you know.
Go to the website and reference it and have it easily available.
Well, something else, I think your media, your radio stations, you know, they give you a weather gonna be 72 today. I think you could ask them, throw the range on with that, you know, your radio station, everybody's got a radio station they listen to. So if, you know, if they knew the high index was today, they could throw it on temperature windy today and 72, high fire danger today.
Right.
You know, that would be part of the, and I don't see any reason why any radio station would want to throw that extra little tidbit on there.
I wonder if they do that, like up in the areas where they do have this.
Seasonally, oh yeah, because it's a big deal, yeah.
I mean, the radio stations, you
Definitely could ask them, sure.
communicate with them.
The only other question that I had was, I did the back page, 1807, and those paragraphs are completely untouched from our current ordinance. I did leave that in there just in case we would get into a severe season or something where we needed to ban completely. So I left that in there kind of as a backfall, and the only question I had was 180703 talks about declaring a fire emergency. If we would go along with state law, we may need to change the penalty on that, because that penalty would be less than what this would be.
I think they should be the same.
Matching.
Right.
Yeah.
Match the penalty,
So it still leaves us an opportunity, if there's an extreme condition, to be able to use our discretion.
Exactly.
But on a day-to-day basis, when it could potentially go one way or the other, so I'd move that with that change.
And I don't know if, where'd Ross go? I did send it to him and
Apparently he's got no
Ernest.
objections.
So I don't know if they,
I'll second it for the sake of discussion. I had forwarded you some concerns of a constituent. Did you take those into consideration?
I did, you know, and one of
They don't want an answer.
the situation was, you know, the categories high, very high, extreme, fire, weather watch, stuff like that. And you know, visiting with Mr. Johnson, and when he was here, you know, that was a suggestion of his to put in to leave it at high due to the topographical area that we are in. You look at West River versus East River, and they have timber, they get a little moisture, that timber stays wet for a few days, where our grasses, I mean, we've had grass fires where we've had 2 inches of snow on the ground in the morning, and the train's starting fires in the afternoon. You know, so I left it in there for now. You know, obviously we can change it. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the grassland fire index, for obvious reasons. You know, we've got some green stuff out there, but we're getting drier again, and the freezes come, so the materials are dying. We've had some high days where there's been some fire weather concerns. So again, that's why I left it in there. I think with the grasses and our topography, I think that'd be a good choice to have in there yet.
So had this been in place, if this had been in place, when roughly would we have not had the burn ban on this summer? You know, just guesstimate, I know you can't go back and look, but when did we get from where we were, or wouldn't it have not went on right away? It would have waited until...
Yeah, you know, we could have, and again, if people follow this, you know, there's probably not going to be any issues, but the control burns that we have on the books today again now are not, the majority of them are not 1 hour burns or 3 hour burns. They're tree piles again, folks. You know, and again, we could have a high or very high or extreme day today, and you could wait a day and light it, and this pile burns forever. That's one of the issues that I have with the grassland fire index, is
it's today's condition,
it's today's condition, not a long-term condition. And again,
don't they have the same situation in all areas where this is put in place? I mean, even in a forest
it
fire.
could be a nice calm day like today, and it could be windier than heck tomorrow, and you start one today, then it's fine today, and tomorrow it's not, but it's already there.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you could have...
This is where, again, I understand, you know, tree piles need to be burnt, but can they wait until we get a little snow on the ground?
Yeah, tree piles or slough areas that, you know...
Well, I think a really important part of that, too, is that they still are required to call in. If they're gonna burn a pile of an old hay stack or an old pile of lumber or trees or something, they still should be calling in.
Agreed. And they, for the most part, they do. We have a few.
And like everything else, it's not perfect, but if you're looking for some sort of a, you know, guideline, and then people are just gonna have to use their own best discretion. I mean, if you're burning out a slough area that's, you know, probably gonna burn itself out in 6 hours, that's a whole lot different than burning a big pile of trees that's likely to fester for a week.
Exactly.
People do understand that by changing this, they are still required to call in a controlled burn, I would hope.
And they're still liable. So that hasn't changed. That's all stayed in there. Like I said, now the penalty's changed if you don't call in or it gets out of hand, and you know, things like that. They're a little bit steeper. So you know, people are gonna have to be a little smarter.
Does that penalty go to the fire department?
I don't believe so.
Who gets that?
I don't know who would get that. I'm guessing it'd be just like our other penalties or fines.
You mean like the overweights that go to the schools?
Circuit court, you paid up?
Can't answer that.
Just curious.
Yeah, don't know.
Well, I like it. I think it's better.
We had a motion from Weiss and a second by Sutton to accept the burn ban ordinance changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved.
Thanks for all the work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we don't need to go through
Well,
posting? Since this is an ordinance?
Are you making an ordinance change?
Yes.
This would be an ordinance
Well,
change.
then we need to start the ordinance change process.
Okay.
So,
Right, so it's gotta be published.
yeah, we'll get a publication. So essentially what we're gonna do is, set a hearing date and schedule that with the minutes will read as.
Yep.
Yep. And we can visit about.
So the
with
public will
town.
still have an opportunity to
Yep, we'll do a
voice
public
any
notice
concerns.
twice, have a first reading,
Yep.
second reading, and we'll essentially start that process with the action today.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect.
Good, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh,
Last
what
time-
did you decide, what did city decide? Are they in on this, or they're doing their own
They,
thing?
I haven't really heard anything,
Okay.
so,
We'll know
I think
more.
there's some language in there for that, yeah.
Okay,
We'll wait till the public hearing.
sure. All right, thank you.
While you're here, I just want to mention one thing, it's not on our agenda, but I was contacted yesterday. Under South Dakota codified law, we're required to have a backup EOC location
Yes.
in the event of an emergency. And the communications director contacted me yesterday, and they would like to set up more of a semi-permanent place somewhere in the courthouse. This is a designated location, but in the event that we would have to react quickly, we really don't have anything set up. And they've got some grant money available that would help aid in setting up that, maybe a 2-unit response center or 911 call center, if we can come up with locations. So it just reinforces the fact that we need to figure out where we're putting everybody downstairs, because they don't need a ton of room, but just enough for a couple consoles, that it would be a easy and quick transition. So that's something for us to keep in mind, that the grant money is available. The only problem is, I think they have to have their application submitted by the end of the week. So maybe they could submit for the grant money, and then we could come up with a potential location in the basement. So.
And thank you, Commissioner. I don't want to speak for Kent, but Kent and I have been working,
Yep.
and Sarah have been working on this for quite some time, for actually a couple of years now.
Yep.
And there's some money that's coming available, or possibly coming available, to help this out. And my thought process to Kent and Sarah was, the basement is probably the most opportune spot for this, on a couple reasons. First of all, we still have, I believe, a written agreement, so that if something happens with our EOC, this is our backup EOC in the community room. It's, when we did a large project for the EOC, probably 10 or 15 years ago, it's wired into our server room, there's extra radios antenna down there, everything's there for this to make it, the cheapest as possible, and probably the safest. So that's the path that I think that Kent and then we're going to go down, so.
And they were just looking for a room that they could keep the consoles, that they've got extra consoles available.
Yep.
So it wouldn't cost us anything for that, so it'd really be very little, if any, out-of-pocket money, because the grant would cover that, but it would,
It's gonna take up some physical space.
yeah, we would need
Right.
to find a location they could lock all the time.
Yep, and,
Wasn't there talk about your old office, emergency management office?
That was one of the
yeah, that's one of the suggestions. Those two offices, I know, we still have our radio room down there, that's, on the side under the steps there. That's not horribly big, where the other offices, and I think teen court or somebody's in there now, but that's maybe a conversation that we maybe need to have, or Kent will have, I guess, with you, to maybe look at that, so. But he's required by law to have this, so, again, this is something we've been working on or talking about for the last couple of years, I know.
This location is designated now, so
Yes.
we're at least in compliance, but it would be nice to have a permanent place that you flip the switch and it's pretty much ready to go in the event of an emergency, so.
And I think with the last issues that we had over there, this is pushing it to the forefront, so.
Yep.
Yep.
I just wanted to bring that up, I know it wasn't on the agenda, but I was just approached yesterday, so.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Last item, county commissioner vacancy process and timeline. Kathy had given us some.
I just put together a rough draft of a public process that could be used to facilitate filling the vacancy. It's completely open for input and kind of what you guys want to do. And then I did put in a timeline, just so you can see how long it would take to fill the vacancy. We still have a quorum of commissioners, once Commissioner Kipley resigns, so there's no immediate rush
Right.
to fill this.
I appreciate that. It gives us a roadmap to where we can have a process, and then also some information to evaluate, the information that any interested parties would have, that we could evaluate that.
The process would be similar to like a bid opening, and we take letters of interest And then you could do open interviews at county commission if you would like,
Sure.
and then decide on how you would, want to choose,
Yep.
choose the new commissioner, yep.
So is this something that would be published on the website, the whole entire process?
We
So
should
that-
put it on the website, yes.
So that any, if somebody calls, tell them, go on the Brown County website and the process is laid out, and that's...
You would
seems like
also
it-
publish it twice in the paper too.
Yeah, we throw in a small public notice, and absolutely, we can put it on the website, yep.
Yeah, I think, it's well-written, and I agree with everything that's in here, and it's like Commissioner Weiss said, it's a roadmap that we can follow and have the process.
I did, kind of model this after the city council when they had their last vacancy a few years ago. What they had done was they had their council do, secret ballot where they ranked the final candidates at the interviews. So that is proposed in here as kind of a fair way for you guys to see who is, if there is a front runner. My only concern with that is if there's 4 people voting, we have, say, 6 candidates, are we gonna even get to a front runner? So maybe that process may not be the best fit for a smaller board, but just something to discuss as well.
Yeah, but we as a board could probably come to an agreement on the best 2 candidates, and then you could do your secret ballot if we have at that point in time. I mean, you surely wouldn't take 6, because chances are to find 6 that all have the same qualifications that you feel, or I feel are different. I think there's gotta be some common denominator between them 6 that would make the fit, so I think you narrow it down and...
Yeah,
And
you do
the,
an initial ranking and then get to finalists and make a decision.
The letter of interest has 4 questions that they would answer as well. So you'll have like, almost like a mini resume
Right.
of the applicant to help you kind of narrow down interview slash
Yep.
selection process. So I just wanted to make sure this was as transparent as possible. We've already been fielding a few calls about the process, so just make sure the public is well aware that all applicants will be treated fairly and the process will be open to the public. The letters of intent will be open to the public. It'll be completely public, just like if you were running for office, it's all public.
Well, this will be interesting. We can't get applications for jobs, but we'll see how many we get for this.
The question I have, because we run as a party position, we have to belong to a party to run. Does the replacement need to be of the same party? Is that required by statute?
No, and you can run as an independent or no party affiliation as well.
Okay.
But it is a partisan elected position.
Right.
But this part of it doesn't have to necessarily be guided by.
Okay, and that was my
partisan
question,
choice.
if because we run as a member of a party.
It's partisan election.
Yep, so,
Is that something you want added in here?
it doesn't matter to me, but I just was wondering if
I mean,
that...
we can check voter registrations if you're curious, but I think we should proceed without that information initially.
Sure.
And just see what the interest is like, and then kind of go down that path based on the letters of interest and.
Because I've been asked that question,
Yeah.
do they have to be of the same political party since you're replacing a Republican? Do they have to be a Republican?
It doesn't, but it can be.
Yep, so that was the question I got asked.
The biggest clarification I get asked is, it's no longer, it's not for 3 years, it's for 1.
Yep.
But how does that work when you have 3 people who are already up for election? Is it a separate piece to run for
Yes.
the 2? So you have to choose right away. Am I
So
running for
you're-
a 4-year in the 3, or am I running for the 1 year
Or
in the
open
2?
positions then, right?
But
Do
one
they
is
all
for-
get in the same,
So,
or is it 2 different elections?
One is for a 2-year,
one is
remainder
for
of a
2
2-year
years to
term.
fill out Rachel's term, and then the others are for 4
Right.
years.
So you
So if I
have to pick
understand,
before
there'll
you
be-
submit your petitions?
There'll be 2 questions on the ballot, if I understand this correctly, and yes, when you fill out your petition, you have to fill out which one of those you would be running for. So that is kind of an interesting scenario, for.
So Dennis and I could run for 2-year terms instead of 4.
Whatever you guys want to do. Looking for an easy out 2 years.
So then, when it comes time for election, like when we had 3 members up for election the last time, in a year's time, 22, there'll actually be 4 up at that time?
Correct.
3 will be for the
4-year term,
one will be for a 2-year.
So that person does, I was understanding that person actually filled out her whole term.
That's the way I understood it too.
Past the election.
Let's clarify that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the way it works, is that you have to have an election, the next general election.
Takes that spot.
Takes that spot, but just to fill the remainder of that term.
Okay.
So it would actually be a separate election.
It'll be a separate question on the ballot, So we're definitely in kind of a unique little pocket here.
Dennis and I run for both.
You can only be on the ballot once.
Just in case.
So then after
Just
not
trying to cause
next year's
trouble.
election, but the '24 election, then we're back on sync.
Yeah,
Right,
once we get to
right,
2024,
yeah,
we're back synced up.
The
And
2
this,
and 3, yeah.
you know, isn't, I guess, super unique as commissioners are changing, you know, on a regular basis across the state, people become deceased, you know, it's not unprecedented.
We just haven't had it in the last
Yeah, we
several
just haven't had it
decades.
recently, so.
Quite a few others have.
Yeah.
So just clarification, the person, if we do this, has to submit this information. They can't just come to one of us and say, hey, I'm interested, throw my name in the hat.
That's the way I understand it.
Correct.
They
Just
have
wanna
to-
make sure we're all on the same.
All applicants should be doing the exact same thing,
I
treated
think,
exactly
think
the
for
same.
fairness, you'd have to do that, and open to the public would make more sense. If we started hand-picking and choosing, you're gonna get in trouble with,
Yep.
so I think you have to follow the process.
They all
I
need to
just wanna make
submit
sure we're
those
all,
4 things.
all on the same
Can they
page.
add a resume to it also, those 4 questions along with the resume?
Well, I would think any supplemental information's fair
Yeah.
game.
And I would agree with that, that's why I just threw that out there.
Okay.
Well, if someone asks for this information, I mean, you could give them a paper copy of it also.
Yeah, I'll
couldn't you?
polish this up, and we'll have something, on the website, we'll have our public notice in the newspaper, and then, yes, we'll have something
Somebody
available
wants to
here.
stop through the auditor's office and pick this up, they can.
And we'll email it to them however they want.
Maybe they wanna swing by the Fikert Farm and pick one up.
Or the Feldheim
Yeah.
Farm.
Fikert Farm and Gun Range.
Well, they're shooting out there, there ain't no question about it.
Any more questions on the vacancy process and the timeline?
Do we need to adopt that, or just
If
informally?
you want to start the process now to have somebody sworn in the first Tuesday in January, we should take action to authorize advertising and kind of approve this process. If you guys would like to wait a little bit, we can certainly sit on it for a few weeks and let you guys.
I think there's been some interest out there, and, you know, having everybody do this, through the same process, because I don't know that, you know, I certainly don't, anybody else has got, you know, I'm definitely, you know, gonna have this, and, I think it's an appropriate thing for people to understand, you know, what their interest is, you know, no different than if you're actually running for the position, at least, you know, have some information out there, so.
Or do we?
I would make a motion that we authorize advertising and set the selection process in place.
Second.
So we had a motion from Sutton, a second by Weiss, to start the process of taking care of the vacancy commissioner and the timeline. Did we want to wait a little bit and give Grace a couple weeks to see if she wants to change her mind?
She keeps showing up for the water job, so.
Maybe she'll back out on us.
Yeah. Well, I guess if I change my mind, I could throw in my
Yeah.
signatures in March, right?
You know what you need to include.
We haven't accepted your resignation yet.
Right.
We have a motion from Sutton, a second by Weiss, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else to come before the commission before we go through the general? Kathy, you wanna take care of the things that you got listed
Yes,
there?
we have the general meeting minutes of November 2nd.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Pfeiffer, second by Sutton, to approve the general meeting minutes of November 2nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have claims and payroll.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve the claims and payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Pfeiffer, second by Weiss, to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think I
Motion
need to
carries.
abstain from that.
You're gonna abstain?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Mac's in there.
Turn that down. Leases.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve the leases. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain from that too. The fair lease.
Complicate things, so.
Yeah, I just wanna make it on the up and up.
There you go.
Lottery permit.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Kifley, second by Weiss, to approve the lottery permits. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Landfill tipping fee, this is for 2022.
Move.
Second.
Go ahead.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kifley, to approve the landfill tipping fees. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Multiple internment requests.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Pfeiffer, second by Weiss, to approve the multiple intermittent request. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Out-of-state travel request.
4 days into the job. I'll move it.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve the out-of-state travel request. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained.
Sounds like a good gig to me.
I had to get that.
I know.
You just beat me to it.
Anything else, Kathy? Is that all?
And I think that's all for today, yeah.
Anything else come before the commission?
HR nothing?
Exactly, personnel.
Again?
I'll move it.
Sorry.
Second.
Got a motion from Sutton, a second from Weiss to go into exec for personnel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in exec. We are out of exec, no action as a result. Anything else come before the commission? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Till next week.